Hello, flight humans. Do you want a vehicle that can't turn, can't fire, and when it fires, can't hit anything? Then the Minotauro is the tank for you. Now, you do have a lot of turret armor here and a lot of hull armor as well. However, this is flat, which means any premium round is going to go straight through it. The angle is about 10-15 degrees, which means any heat shell of 300 millimeters or more is going to go straight through it. You do have 10 degrees of gun depression, which means if you do use the gun depression, you can make the turret more durable. However, the problem with that, if you want to have a hull-down heavy tank, there are way better options, like the Kranwagen, for example, which is a one-trick pony in its own right. However, it doesn't have the massive limitations that the Minotauro has. This is not the actual reload time of the shells. You have to add these 3.5 seconds as well, because the interclip happens first, and then the next shell starts reloading. So keep that in mind. Now, 490 alpha damage is quite high. However, actually, 0.36, and that is with using refined gun on this vehicle. Without refined gun, it is even worse, because your movement dispersion is absolutely abysmal. So, yeah, this is a vehicle that cannot fire anything moving. And another problem is that you have a turret that is limited to 45 degrees, which means if you try to peek around the corner, good luck, it won't work most likely. The hull traverse speed and the ground resistance of this vehicle is absolutely abysmal as well, which means that you can't turn at all. This vehicle will be... You could essentially outturn this vehicle in an Object 268. Here's the thing. This thing has nothing to do with the tank destroyer except the turret limitation. And that's a bad thing. So, mobility is not great. The gun's miserable and also quite clumsy. What is the good things about this vehicle? Well, Tier 9s are going to have a tough time penning it, and anyone that doesn't have 300 pen plus is going to not be able to pen it. However, other than that, the 10 degrees of gun depression and the slight hull down capability are the only thing that actually is good about this vehicle. Now, just to ask, will you ever believe leaks again or anyone saying a tank is OP before it's released? I hope not. Now, as you can see right here, you have a 22 seconds reload off the beginning, which is another annoying inconvenience, right? That by the time you get into the battle, which is about 25-30 seconds with a vehicle of this mobility, you only have the horrible shell reloaded. So if you want to fire right now, you can't because you have the bad shell. Now you have to wait again, and at that time the enemy might reposition and you lose out on damage. So again, inconvenience stacked upon inconvenience of this vehicle. That's what this thing is. It is an inconvenience everything. So it can work, however, if you do it correctly. Now, you can, interestingly enough, you can side-script this tank quite a bit if you do it properly, and that is quite nice. Now, these two games that I'm going to show you are really good games in the Minotauro, because I just also want to show you that despite it being an absolutely horrible platform, it can work out well if you do the right steps. Now, in this case, this vehicle relies on two things. This vehicle relies on two things to do well: enemy incompetence and your team's help. Because if someone actually comes to fight you, you're dead. Because, I mean, your front armor won't matter if everything can flank you. I mean, a mouse might not, but then again, a mouse has higher hit points. That's another thing. It's tank destroyer. It has lower hit points than everything else. That 60 TP has 2.5k. I have 2,000 with the increased hit points. So, obviously, the 268 does have that as well. However, the 268 has higher alpha damage. You see where this is going? It's like, yes, you have certain things that are there, but then you also have a trade-off that makes it worse in a lot of cases. Now, for example, the 268 can turn. 268 has alpha damage. It doesn't have to wait half an hour to reload. So, in a case like this, the 60 TP is throwing himself into me. It works beautifully, right? But this is what you want to do with this vehicle. Slow and steady gameplay, because you don't have any DPM to fight anyone. If you want to brawl, what are you going to do? You can't kill anyone. You don't have any DPM. So, it's about 2,300 with the first shell. It's worse than an IS-7. So, you know, now at this point, the enemy Minotauro is just going to be like, oh, I'm going to hunt you. I'm going to show my ass to a grill. And look at that traverse speed. It's just, you can't turn this tank. A Kranwagen, a Type 71, it feels faster because with those vehicles, you can turn the hull and the turret at the same time. With this vehicle, you can't do that. It's slow all the way around. Look at that. It loses so much mobility when you try to turn. And again, this game, you have a pretty big clip. 1,500 damage in that clip, but you can't use that clip. You have two shells, basically. Now, if this vehicle had a 2-shell auto-reloader with 490 alpha damage, and just the regular reloads without that third shell, completely cut it. It doesn't exist. this would be a better tank if it wouldn't have that shell. Because there's the thing, it is a emergency shell or whatever, but that makes the tank more clumsy, more annoying to play. Which is why, for example, on the tier 8, I absolutely recommend the standard gun. That is a beautiful gun. That is great on the tier 8. The tier 8 with a standard gun is an absolute monster. However, this auto-reloader is a Kranvang that's got cucked. Now, you might think, yeah, but what about the incredible armor? Well, here's the thing. A vehicle like a Type 71 or even a 60 TP, they can even defeat premium rounds. This vehicle really can't, for the most part. Another problem is you want to keep your armor pointed at the enemy. This is a very long vehicle, which means it's pretty easy to hit it in the rear when it's slightly angled, which means you always want to be pointing at the enemy. However, if you're that long, you have that horrible traverse speed, that would be quite difficult. Now in a game like this, where everyone's going to one side, it's not ideal either because no one's supporting the other side, obviously. Now, as you just saw in that game before, as you will see in this game, this vehicle can work. And that is dependent on two factors. And that is not your skill, but your team's existence and the enemy team's incompetence. Because the thing is, no amount of skill is going to save you from the misses that this tank produces with the horrible accuracy. No amount of skill is going to save you from the absolutely abysmal DPM that this vehicle has. And no skill is going to save you from not being able to turn and not being able to even fight a heavy tank because of that. So, camping in this vehicle is impossible. You don't have the accuracy for it. Brawling this tank is impossible. You don't have the traverse speed or the DPM for it. So what does it do, really? Well, it is basically emergency armor on this vehicle, where you don't want to get shot at necessarily unless you have to. Because you don't have the hit points of a heavy tank. You don't have the gun of a heavy tank, but you have the mobility of a heavy tank. I mean, it is a tank story in name only, and with a turret limitation as well. I would much rather have an object... you can play an object 26A more dynamically, more mobile, more forward than this. And now, here comes the mouse. And essentially, what you want to do to make this tank perform is, well, have an incompetent enemy that is going to give you a lot of time, because you will need it. The reload is incredibly long. It's the same as a Kranvang. You have an incredibly long reload. You're going to need a long time to get this tank going. However, with the Kranvang, you have a fully traversable turret. You have also more gun depression. And you have even a better gun as well, because you don't have that horrible third shell that you can't even use. Now, the mouse in this case is going to achieve absolutely nothing, but is going to achieve that it pens straight through my face. Now, obviously, if you put this thing hull down with the 10 degrees of gun depression, you can make it better. Obviously, another problem with auto-reloaders, if you have to fire prematurely, and that goes for all auto-reloaders, so if you fire prematurely, that shell that you just reloaded is gone. So your DPM is going to suffer even more, and that's the problem. If you have an already low DPM, and you can't do anything to increase it, but you can do a lot to decrease it, it very quickly goes below 2,000 very fast, and that for a vehicle of this type is simply unacceptable. Now, 2.4k damage already done, because, I mean, the mouse, he's not really fighting me like that much, and yes, you can side scrape it to a bit like there, and that's the thing. If you're a good player, and you're fighting a bad player in this vehicle, you can use it, right? It's a tank that can work. However, do you want this tank? Do you generally want to research a vehicle that's only enjoyment factor is that after a long time of reloading, you can finally shoot a shell that might still miss? I think not. I would absolutely not recommend picking up this vehicle in any circumstances. If you want a vehicle of this type, get the Kranvang, you can get the Type 71. So, because that vehicle, it can leave off its armor. This thing can live off its armor a bit as well, but the problem is, you have to bounce so much damage. So much damage till you get that DPM going. It ain't worth it. I mean, against AP, yeah, but second I load heat, armor's gone. So, look at that. The second you turn the turret a bit, poof, it is out. Now, the good thing as well is you have 500 damage, which means you only need 6 shots to get 3k. I'll already get those first. So, it is a vehicle that you can't enjoy, for the most part. It is a vehicle you have to suffer through. That is my opinion, at least. But that, I cannot recommend. It traverses too slowly, and it is too inaccurate. Now, what would I do to this vehicle? To solve this entire problem, it's very easy. Get rid of that annoying third shell, and make it traverse like an actual tank, and not like a boat. Thank you very much for watching. See you in the next one. Goodbye.